This 17-year-old goes on a date with this girl who really, I mean, he's kind of smitten with her at the end of it. And he comes home, and his dad has some bad news about the family, and is reading a Teddy Roosevelt book and says, here, you know, I want you to settle down. You're going out with these cheerleaders and read this thing. And so I'm going to pick it up right in the middle there. So Philip scanned down the page. Far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows not victory nor defeat. That's what I'm afraid my brother, your Uncle Robbie, is doing. What's that? He's living in the gray twilight. He's going to live in Monongahela Heights government housing. He looked at his son. Uncle Robbie and Neil are visiting next week for Thanksgiving. Your mom is going to put on a grand feast. He stared at Philip. Be respectful when they're here, but I want you to avoid it. Avoid what? Avoid the gray twilight. Get in the arena. Philip went upstairs, the tumblers of his psyche still spinning. He turned the light on in his room and stared at the 6-point rack mounted on a lacquered wooden plaque set above his bed, antlers draped with ties. He looked at his bedroom gun rack, which contained his hunting rifle, the Winchester 30-30 Model 94 gun that won the West. I should tell the guys something I discovered at lunchtime. Matt didn't get his 10-point with an open-sighted rifle. He used a scope. That's far less sportsmanship. He frowned. But Ruth wouldn't care. She didn't even know I hunted. She wouldn't care at all. He glanced at the rack below his rifle and regarded his fishing poles, his spinning rod, his fly rod. Being the great outdoorsman means nothing to Ruth. How could that be? He thought of his cousin. It's been too long since Neil and I went fishing. Maybe we can go out this spring. I'll invite him. Neil will need cheering up. He then realized Ruth would consider the act of cheering Neil up far more important than the fish they would catch. He took off his shirt and he hung it in the closet and noticed his large 74-numbered football jersey. Football was everything to me, and Ruth didn't even know I was on the team. He emptied the contents of his pockets on his bureau and stared at himself in the mirror. The essence of me is not the outdoorsman. It's not the football player. The dreamlike date with Ruth knocked his view off kilter. She thinks I'm super because I stopped a fight. Philip thought of the Roosevelt quote, far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, than take rank with those timid spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live in the great twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. Philip sat on the edge of his bed and his thoughts wandered. We're seeing Uncle Robbie and Neil next week for Thanksgiving. Dad doesn't want me to live in the great twilight like them. He stared at the wall and a smile creased his face. Ruth doesn't think I'm in the great twilight. Ruth thinks I'm super because she saw me in the right arena. The tumblers of the 17-year-old psyche were settling in a new place. He realized the realm of jockeying and competing for status with his high school peers was the wrong game, the wrong arena. Uncle Robbie and Neil don't know because they're pounded down. Even Dad doesn't know. They're all in the gray twilight. He shook his head in wonder. It's Ruth. She sees me as I could be. She sees me as I ought to be. He lay back in bed and stared at the ceiling. I need to see a lot more of her.